All right, it is time for Quick Picks. Shane is back from beyond the pale. Outside the pale?
Just outside the pale, I'd say. Glendalough, County Wicklow.
Was it actually called Beyond the Pale?
It was.
Okay.
Festival name. So
there you go.
Yeah, there you
go. Michael is here. Mick,
here I am.
How are you?
Shane did a lot better in his absence than he did when he was here last week, or the previous weeks.
His proxy picks, so Paul the proxy was very good for us, and picked for you, and got 4 out of 5.
To be fair, I would have probably made the same picks as Paul.
Of course you would.
Including the wrong one, including Monaghan, of course I would have.
Of course you would.
But no, Paul did well. I was building Cork up all week to beat Mayo. So
people new to the slot, we do Quick Picks. It's available every Friday in your podcast feed on Friday afternoon. It's the best way of previewing the big games of the weekend, and then it's obviously on the radio here on Off the Ball on Newstalk every Friday evening. It's Shane versus Mick versus Will, and the score is Shane on 13, Mick on 11, Will on 11, because you both got 2 out of 5 last week.
Yeah. Now, it might have been 3 out of 6, but the gap is definitely right anyway. But we like, if you listen back, and nobody ever will, like, I was talking up Cork, I was talking up Kildare, but then panicked and went for I did actually, like, I remember, like, I did 5 minutes on how Roscommon shouldn't count their chickens in this game.
Yeah,
I've actually really impressed with Cork though. Like, we'll get to them I suppose in a few minutes, but like, I thought they were really good against Kerry, and then it was like dismissed for me by other people who were saying that Kerry weren't at the races.
Yeah.
And then they did the same to Mayo. You know, I know a lot of it was in the last 10 minutes, but even so, I think they've been really good since whenever they lost to Clare.
I think everybody is going to regret giving Kerry the opportunity to get back the breath that they've had, like to slowly work their way out of whatever funk they were in. And if Cork could have beaten them, like, it was... retrospectively, it appears to have been there for them, but their performance against Louth is so spectacular that you're like, oh, they're back now. Well, maybe they're not. The
extra week's break, like, so how important is, like, so are Kerry, Dublin, Derry and Armagh now the favourites for the All-Ireland? Grant, because of the week off. Like, can you see anyone from the preliminary quarterfinals this weekend going on to win?
Well, what happens if Galway beat Mayo? Can they draw Armagh again? I don't. Is there going to
no? They're going to try and avoid repeat pairings. So Galway win, and they likely will have Dublin or Kerry.
Yeah,
like, mathematically speaking.
Wow.
So they're going to try their best to avoid repeat pairings.
But if Mayo win, then they'll avoid Kerry, and they'll get Dublin, Derry,
yeah,
or Armagh.
But it's how big a factor the 3 weeks in a row, as Shane is saying. Like, I mean, 3 weeks in a row is something that they do try to avoid everywhere else in the championship. You know, you look at the hurling, you look at the Munster-Leinster round robins, that was the tweaks that they've made, is to not have 3 games in a row. That's why they split up that Munster week, you know.
Yeah.
And it's because it's a lot of championship football to play in 3 weeks, you know. So you got Kerry now, who fluked their way into top in the group, and you know, I think the lads were saying it on the football pod during the week, is like, that's a lovely thing now all the way to the final for any of those teams. They've got 2 weeks all the way.
Oh, it's perfect.
You know, it's you're never getting stale, you're never getting
now we were talking about this from miles back, about this very thing being the reason why you wanted to win the group and why the group games mattered.
So this is the argument we had last week. But who was proved right?
We were 100%.
No, I was.
What are you talking about?
Because I was saying that it mattered, absolutely. I completely agreed with you that it mattered, but I said that teams wouldn't go hell for leather last week because they don't think about these things far enough in advance.
You're telling me Mayo weren't trying against Cork? You're telling me Roscommon weren't trying?
I'm saying Mayo took the foot off the pedal against Cork, I think, and I think
Mayo had
specifically Galway.
Mayo had their traditional
I think Galway could have won that game. Galway dropped a couple of players.
Well,
rested a couple of players.
I think they have injuries. To be honest, the 3 weeks in a row thing, I think we're overblowing. If you go back and you look at Mayo in the qualifiers, they would have played 3 weeks in a row fairly regularly. Kildare would have played 3 weeks in a row, and McGuinney in the qualifiers, and by the third week they were like,
they're flying then. Yeah, that's a way of looking at it.
So, momentum, Ger.
Well, confidence, practice, you know, working things out, getting to know your players better. I heard you taking my name in vain as my kids in the car. I talking about you. Yeah, they are saying bad things about me. Yeah.
I don't think I said a bad thing. I said I made your point and then said I slightly disagree with it.
Slightly disagree with it. Completely disagree with it, Mick. There's plenty of room on the bandwagon of correctness as we are now hurtling towards everybody going, this made everything retrospectively make sense.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that we've played a gazillion games. You have to stop thinking about the provincials. They are not relevant to anything that we're talking about when it comes to the 3 matches. We've played 3 matches. We've had a million games and there's no point to them. It's like, no, there've been 3 games, and retrospectively almost every one of them mattered. If you're Westmeath, for example, if you're Armagh, if you're Tyrone, every second of the games, it turns out, mattered. And I think that this format is not perfect. I would absolutely torpedo the connection between the provincial championships and this. But this is a way better scenario that we find ourselves in.
Step in the
and
right
even
direction.
the fact that there's 12 teams left, it's brilliant.
Yeah. The reason I was making the point on that is because there was a counterpoint to be made there, and you were the first person that came to my mind. That's why I said it. It was like we are at good football. And my point was we're getting we've waited too long for the dessert.
Could you actually make a point for any of the 12 teams remaining to win the All-Ireland?
I mean, it's difficult for Kildare.
Tough, but not impossible.
Monaghan. I think
it is.
Really?
I would have found it very difficult to make the point for Tyrone in the first season of Dooher and the lads, but then they came good. I mean, they were out of the championship, but that's at one stage because of COVID. So that was
just, the winner of the Kildare Monaghan game has a bit of pep in their
freaky
step.
and weird. Well, it depends. Can you see Kildare beating Dublin? I can't. No. I can't see Cork winning. I now can't see Roscommon winning.
No.
If Roscommon had taken care of business and beaten Kildare and were having a week off, obviously they weren't going to have a week off because the Dubs ended up tanking Sligo, so that wasn't possible. But they would have had a home game, and their record in the Hyde is pretty good. I don't know. I think that there was a mad rush to complain about stuff, and even last weekend people were like, "Oh, this doesn't prove anything now. Well, just because this is great." I'm like, what? John Hesson could have knocked out Tyrone with a free. What?
And this weekend is going to be
That's
equally
amazing.
as good. Yeah, it'll be. Well, 2 weekends in a row people can't ignore. So I think once this weekend is unbelievable, which it promises to be, and then the quarterfinals, I mean, it's going to be brilliant.
But again, as I was saying during the week, we've always had this round. It was called round 4 of the qualifiers.
But we didn't.
But there's better
I heard you say that exactly. But
I said that point at the time.
But there were no good teams in there were very few good teams in round 4 of the qualifiers, and
I usually have Tyrone or Mayo or Galway, one of those two.
In round 4?
Yeah,
because it was the beaten provincial finalists, so it was never as good games. It was more like the Sligos and the Clares and so that got into the group stages here. But yeah, sometimes it was it was a beaten provincial finalist who might be Mayo against someone who's come through the qualifiers.
One of the games might have been good.
One or two, the Ulster finalists and often the Connacht finalists.
We have now a scenario though. Again, they're because
or Cork,
and not always the time to, and not coming through having won a game to get in generally. Which the majority of these teams have.
The obvious flaws
had to come through.
Mayo have lost 2 games. Monaghan lost to Derry and lost last weekend, so Monaghan have lost 2 games, and yet they're still alive.
Well, they haven't in the.
Yeah,
sorry.
you're separate. In the championship.
Yeah, but that is the desire, I think. Yeah.
Anywho, the picks that we're asking you to pick this week: 4 football and 2 hurling. Kildare Monaghan, Donegal Tyrone, Cork Roscommon, Galway Mayo. In the hurling, it's Clare versus Dublin and Galway versus Tip, which somehow they've managed to fix for a home venue for Clare. It's in Limerick. Home venue for Clare. It's very handy, isn't it? I don't hear you complaining and whining about the.
I did actually. Well, you in the office, I was saying that was very unfair on Dublin during the week.
Yeah.
I'm obviously not going to go to bat for something. It's nothing to do with me.
Mick McCarthy derby, yeah. Clearing the Dubs.
Sorry, I'm just looking for Will's picks here. Okay, so I've got them. Shane, Kildare versus Monaghan. I don't even need to talk to you about this. You have to pick Monaghan because you're biased.
No, it's certainly not biased. I'll be rational about Monaghan, and I think often Monaghan come into games better as underdogs. I'm not saying I know they are favourites slightly with the bookies.
Yeah.
But if Monaghan come in off the back of a bad result like last weekend, generally speaking, they get their act together for the second time around. We saw it with Derry this year. Second time they got a chance to play Derry, they were far, far better. I'd be concerned about the Kildare scorers from a Monaghan perspective, as in Alex Byrne is starting to score, Ben McCormick, Dan Flynn as well. They have options. So if Monaghan can marshal the Kildare forwards, the fact that it's not a Newbridge as well. I know Kildare obviously got to choose Tullamore as the venue.
Kildare's Newbridge record is appalling.
Well, there is that.
The pitch doesn't suit
that
them.
one time.
Monaghan will have a big home support, I would suggest, with the minor semi-final against Kerry on beforehand. I think Monaghan will get the act together. It'll be a close game, and I'm obviously going to go with Monaghan. I have to.
So Monaghan are favourites. They're slightly odds on. Kildare slightly odds against. The spread's about 1.5.
It's a close one.
Yeah, Monaghan have been very, very up and down, haven't they? Just not.
Well, the only down they had was, they obviously lost to Derry in Ulster, but they've since drawn with Derry. They beat Tyrone, beat Clare with a big scoreline.
Yeah.
They've had good days out, and the Donegal game the last day, I mean, they didn't perform that well, but in the end it's only 2 points in it. You know,
Ger, will you make my pick for me? Seeing as you're just with the Kildare side of things, I love this Kildare story. I want Glenn Ryan to celebrate on the sideline like he did during the week. I want Kevin Feely to score a winning free and so on. Sorry about this.
Oh, sorry. The mark was outstanding. Like not only the catch but the kick under that form of pressure. So that kick doesn't go over and Kildare are out. Am I right in saying?
No, they would still be.
They draw.
They would have been at home. They would have been away.
Could have been away. Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, I just my heart does kind of say Kildare because of this story and because of the legend of the sideline and so. But my head is saying Monaghan. Unfortunately, I just think experience.
You go with your head, and it's a clean.
Would you pick Kildare though? That's what I'm saying.
Little plucky underdogs, Kildare with a massive population. Mick, is it the tiny little guys?
They're underdogs in this scenario.
From
they don't
West
have the
Dublin,
experience in
the West Dublin GAA club over here. That's what Kildare are, by the way. West Dublin. So like plucky underdog story does not shine through here. This is ridiculous. You can't call Kildare plucky underdogs. I mean, what's the population of Kildare versus Monaghan here? If you want to pick the underdog story, go.
All right, Shane. All right.
Favourites though, your favourites. Favourites. I would say that Monaghan are a first world footballing nation on the basis of the fact that they've produced incredible administrators who have got their club system purring the way they do. They've got that system where they star the league games and everybody plays those starred league games, and then the rest of the league continues the way any smart county would do it, and as a result they've been able to produce underage teams now, and
consistently Division 1 for
10 years.
10 years now at this stage.
One of the signature moments of McGeeney's era was a victory against Monaghan in a run in the qualifiers, and then they trounced me the following week, and I think that might have been 2010. So I think that Kildare have a chance.
I can't remember a Kildare Monaghan game that wasn't tight. Generally speaking, it was in qualifiers. Kildare hockeyed Monaghan in the league last year, but then Monaghan went out and beat the Dubs the following day. So there's your example of hot and cold. But in the championship, there's only a kick of the ball between Kildare and Monaghan.
I'll go for Monaghan. So what did Will go?
Will's gone for Monaghan.
Okay.
Donegal Tyrone. Will's gone for Tyrone. In Ballybofey.
I went against Donegal last week and didn't feel good about it either. I'm going to go for Donegal here.
All right.
I have a feeling that they're really coming into their own a little bit.
Shaney?
Jason McGee is named back in the Donegal team. He was out with a hamstring injury. There is the Ballybuffet effect as well that you could lean on Donegal. I just think Tyrone and a Canavan that is now the Canavan we were promised.
Yeah.
I know the game against Westmeath was disappointing from their perspective, but I think they're going to get the act together, and when they get back to Croke Park, I mean, they're going to be dangerous. Tyrone for me for this one.
All right. So it's clean sweep for two Tyrones and a Donegal.
Yeah, I'm on Donegal. Yeah.
Cork versus Roscommon. Will says Roscommon.
Cork for me.
Oh, this is the one I'm completely split on. So Roscommon obviously coming off the back of a disappointing result, but again there could be the Monaghan effect that I think a team coming in after defeat could get the act together. Cork now have the hype and the pressure, and coming back against Mayo the way they did. Páirc Uí Chaoimh, I mean, it has to have some sort of an impact being at home.
Could be 12,000 people there though, you know.
You're Davy Burke's biggest fan.
Yeah, for that reason I have to go for
You've been on the Davy Burke bandwagon from the get-go.
I love the man. I do love him.
Here's why I'm saying Cork though. It's just simple, like just trajectory for me. Like I think they've been getting better every game. Roscommon have had a lot of big games, and I know we don't count the provincial. I think you can with them.
Oh no,
I
totally.
think when they played Mayo and Galway, they were big games, and then they went through everything. I wonder if they peaked at this stage, and I like. Or they took last week lightly, and if they do, I'll be probably wrong here. But I'm just going for Cork.
Like, look how impressive.
But right in
the bigger picture. Exactly.
See what you did there, Mick.
They beat Mayo and Castlebar. They drew with Dublin and Croker. Like, I know last week feels like an outlier for this Roscommon
team. Games, yeah.
None of their games were where they dominated the full 70 minutes. You always get a 15-20 minute window against Roscommon where you can rack up a score. The Galway game is exactly the same. They could easily have beaten them, but they didn't. And so, Sligo. Yeah, the Sligo man in my ear is going Sligo. However, this is a superior opposition.
Enda Smith for me runs the show.
Enda Smith, that point against Kildare at the very end of the game is one of the great scores I've ever seen. It was unbelievable.
Outrageous.
No, can't enjoy this. Sorry, it means nothing. Both these teams are still going to be in this. This is a waste. Why do we need this game? Why is this game happening?
Why do we have football?
And I'm not at that end of the scale. But there's a large cohort of people who are like, Why don't they just play the final already?
I also think Davy Burke possibly could have been too invested in that game last week. He's a Kildare man after all. That means a lot to him, I'm sure.
He was in Fuego afterwards.
He was. I think this weekend they'll have the act back together, Roscommon,
right.
and they'll be round to go.
So you're going for Roscommon and you've gone for Cork.
Will is
Roscommon. Galway Mayo.
That's Will. He's gone Mayo.
We've got to get through these now. We're way over time.
Oh, well, we're going to talk more about Galway, but
Will I go or you go?
I'm thinking.
Okay, well, if Sean Kelly and Damien Comer are back, I think Galway will win this. I was reading John Fogarty this morning. He was talking about winning the toss, how important it is in Salt Hill. I think they're given 30km/h winds this weekend and a bit of rain, and if you win the toss it's worth a few points because you get to decide when you want to engage with that.
It's not. Well, it's not.
You can build up a bit of a lead apparently.
You build up a bit of a lead, but you're defending the lead.
How do you know who's going to win the toss? You're making a pick here.
No, I know. Mayo have won the last three or four games they've played Galway and Salt Hill, so I think home advantage is completely wiped out. But if Kelly and Comer are fit, I just think there's the argument for Mayo that when backs are against the wall and they play a knockout game, that's when they come good. But I think Galway will have been more pleased with last weekend against Armagh than Mayo will after the nature of the defeat against Cork. So Galway for me.
Galway tend to match up well against Mayo anyway, don't they? Like, I mean, even when Mayo were getting to All-Ireland finals and Galway were doing nothing, Galway were beating them. Like, I think that they suit them and I think they'll beat them.
All right, Will's gone for Mayo, you've gone for Galway. Who have you gone for?
Galway.
Okay, wasn't quite sure there.
Oh, a lot of splits this week.
You said everything.
He did say everything.
Hurling, Clare versus Dublin. Clare says Will, Clare says Mick.
No time, we'll just stick with Clare.
I'm not going to mess around here either.
The game's bigger.
All right, Galway versus Tip. Will, from the Hurling Pod, putting his reputation on the line, has gone for
Tip. Obviously he hates Galway.
Why?
Everyone in the Hurling Pod fan base seems to think that Will hates Galway.
Does he?
Just proved it this week, isn't he? I think that's a running theme or trend.
Scale on Tipperary was amazing. The lads played it. A brief interlude here. We once used to do these competitions where we would play a clip from a famous scene in a movie and ask you what was the movie on the News Talk Breakfast show. This is back in 2006, and there was a clip from Die Hard which included the famous Yippee-Ki-Yay mother, except they didn't beep out and it went out at 5 minutes past 8 that morning while the censor who was in to review the papers was sitting there with the earphones on going
oh Jesus.
So the same thing happened this morning on OTB AM when they played a clip from the Hurling Pod where Scahill was basically, I hate those Tipperary.
Sure.
Well, that was
sure. Considering you had Don Deasy on the show this week, I don't know if that's that big a deal.
I missed that. Ronan O'Gara had walked in the studio at that point, so I was obviously chatting to him and not listening to.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. It was
Jesus, right?
High end. Don Deasy, I think people might have expected it.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, not just in a random ad break. Yeah. This is the hardest game I think of the weekend, I think, across both sports, because I don't know, like, the idea that Galway will be shattered by what happened in the Leinster final, I don't really buy, and I don't know where Tip are. I think Tip have possibly slightly overrated their Munster campaign, but definitely better than what they showed against Waterford.
I think if you take the Waterford game out of it, they're like contenders, and so complacency.
I think they should have beaten Limerick on that day. I don't think Limerick were. I think that was probably Limerick at their worst. So they've got better every game since. I think the Cork game they absolutely should have won. I don't know. I all week I've been thinking Galway. I've been thinking Galway since the Leinster final, and I kind of have changed my mind, and I think Tip are going to beat them now.
Tip.
I didn't like the look of that Cork Galway team that was named yesterday. I don't like the forward line.
Ironically, I prefer to be coming into this match from a Galway perspective with a little bit of hurt from the Leinster final rather than tip cricket score against Offaly.
Hate speech there, Jerry.
How does a cricket score win against Offaly help them last weekend? I don't know if it does.
Tip.
I think it's going to be a big week. Ger's put me off in his maroon top here as well. I think it's a big weekend for Galway GAA. I think they do the double. Galway footballers beat Mayo and the hurlers beat Tip.
The Thai Hurling Club
Tip
colours.
fans will appreciate that. I really hope I'm wrong here in saying that I think Tip will win.
Tip. That's this week's Quick Picks. Is somebody keeping score?
We
Somebody's
are,
obviously
kind of,
yeah. All right. Quick break. Back after these. Check out the OTB GAA feed wherever you get your podcasts.